Hey, deserving listeners, The Ultimatum. Let's watch.
It doesn't become like this hot topic. Like everybody said this, like you're very strong-willed, you're very opinionated, and sometimes I feel like I'm on the defense when I'm like trying to tell you how I'm feeling. I wouldn't have to feel the same way. Like we can feel different, we can agree to disagree, but like just listen and be like, okay, well, that's not how I feel. This is how I feel.
Okay, this is great that Ray is saying this. I don't know the background. It's possible that Lexi could convince me that this is unfair of Ray, but it certainly doesn't look that way. And this is a very common conversation, whether it's a romantic relationship or friendship or work relationship. And what I'm guessing is that for Ray, she was possibly emotionally abused with anger and rage. You know, there's a lot of different roads to the hypothesis that I've been developing regarding Ray, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of the major factors in her shutting down and focusing outwards to please other people as a child that developed into a pattern was because someone in her family was quick to anger and was scary. And Lexi seems to exhibit that as well. You know, it's not necessarily abusive, we might not call it that, but the anger, you know. And what I will do with couples like this is I do not say that the Lexi version of anger needs to go away. There's nothing wrong with being angry, and it's very tempting in our sexist society to shut women down when they exhibit any amount of anger. So I'm certainly not going to participate in that. In fact, regardless of gender, I am a proponent of anger. Anger, sometimes even in therapy, among therapists, is considered to be this negative emotion. It's not. It's a wonderful emotion. So many wonderful things happen in our society and in our personal lives when we feel our anger and direct it in a way that is functional. Anger is an evolved emotion that is important to us socially and practically, that motivates us to take action against injustice. When we were evolving 200,000 years ago, a million years ago, the emotion was adopted and co-opted into our social life so that someone wasn't wronged by the society that they lived in, whether it was 50 or 100 people in their tribe. And if someone was getting more food or someone was being left behind, then they would notice that injustice for themselves or on behalf of someone else, and they would get angry and they would do something about it. We tend to associate anger with destructive behavior, and certainly it can be destructive, but it doesn't have to be. It can be directed in functional ways. So I certainly wouldn't tell Lexi that she couldn't be angry. It's just a matter of what she does with it, right? How she differentiates, how she expresses it. I would encourage her to continue being angry, because when people are angry, I'm actually happy, because for a lot of clients, particularly women, I will, it'll take me years of hard work with them, and they're working harder than I am in therapy, to help them to even have a shred of anger expressed. It could take, you have a lifetime of being beaten down and judged and harmed when you express anger, again, particularly women. And it can take many years to reverse that, because without anger, without being able to express anger, you're still angry, but you have no functional way of expressing it, or it builds up to such a degree that you explode, right? So we need to be able to recognize when we're a 2 out of 10 and express it as a 2 out of 10, instead of letting a lot of things build up and then we're a 10 out of 10 and then we're dysfunctional and dysregulated and unfair to others. So I wouldn't do that, but so I'd do two things. One is I would help Lexi to direct the anger, and I would work with the two of them. Ray hopefully would voice, I don't like that, but I do like that. Sometimes I will role play anger responses that are helpful. And so I do that. But the other thing I would do is I would help Ray to tolerate anger, because in all likelihood, Ray is displacing and distorting Lexi's anger as an actual physical threat, which is normal for people who have been through those kinds of experiences growing up. And then they overreact. They either completely shut down, or they feel like they're being treated unfairly, or they make up certain things in their head about what the Lexis of the world are thinking and doing, and that can be very upsetting to the Lexis of the world. So I also work with the Rays of the world to help them to regulate themselves and differentiate and have a healthy perspective about anger itself. Because for some people, like Ray, any indication of anger is dysfunctional and a threat and dangerous. When it's possible that literally every time Lexi is angry, it's not, or at the very least, it's not in any way, shape, or form as threatening as Ray is taking it. So that's there's a lot of conversations about that. It could take a long time. And also for the two of them to work together on helping Ray to tolerate anger so that Lexi can have empathy and predict, oh, Ray's shutting down. Oh, I have to look at my tone. Am I doing something? What do I say? And often what I will find that works, work collaboratively with clients, and the Lexis of the world will land on having certain caveats that they will say. They will say something like, so as a caveat, so a situation happens, right? And the Lexis of the world will say, okay, I'm a 3, and the therapist said I shouldn't wait until it's a 7, so I'm supposed to do something. And they will have a caveat, and they'll say, so Ray, I'm about to express some upsetness, but I want to tell you I'm not really angry at you. Maybe I'm a little angry, but I'm maybe a little frustrated, but I'm not angry at you, and I'm not going to punish you, because the Rays of the world will often worry that any indication of anger is the tip of the iceberg, and there's going to be tidal wave of anger and punishment and consequences that are coming, and then they just and of course, if you think that is happening, you feel completely put upon, you feel completely unfairly treated. So then you start making up these stories about the Lexis of the world. Anyway, so they will have caveats of just like, so I'm a 3 out of 10. I'm not really upset, and I'm not a 10 out of 10. And regardless of your response, I'll probably be able to deal with it. So there's no pressure, because the Rays of the world will feel a lot of pressure when you open up a conversation like that. They'll just deer in headlights, because they have so many traumas about these conversations not going well for them. So a great thing you can do for the Rays of the world is say, like, so you don't have to do anything. I'm not scrutinizing you, or even just laying out for the Rays of the world what you're looking for. You just say, so all I'm looking for is some validation that you don't have to agree with me, because maybe I'm crazy, because you're not really believing you're crazy, but you throw that out there. I say that all the time to my wife. I'll just be like, when I'm at my best, I'll just be like, so, there are some times when I only halfway believe it, but then give me a couple days and I fully believe it, because when you're triggered, it's hard to really see straight. And so I'll say something like, so, I want to talk about something, and there's a pretty good possibility that I'm completely crazy. Like, I'm overreacting, I'm misinterpreting, and this is all my fault. It doesn't feel that way to me right now, but history has told me that when we have these kinds of discussions and there's some tension and I'm complaining about something, almost all the time, at the very least, I look back and think, I was overreacting. There was a kernel of reactivity there, or of justice there, but not nearly to the degree that it felt like it was at the time. So I just, through maturity and experience and therapy and work and I have learned that, so that in the moment of the critical moment when the stuff hits the fan, because of that repetition, I retain that. It's a big part of change is, when you're calm, it's pretty easy to be differentiated and healthy. The key is though you have to drill into your head over and over again, like, remember next time. And some of that has to do with grief and dealing with shame. It can be it's shameful. You feel bad, like, oh, okay, I have to really acknowledge that I will overreact. It doesn't feel good, And when you do that sufficiently and you tolerate it, you get used to it, and you have a lot of corrective experiences, people telling you that it's okay, you're still a wonderful, lovable, worthy human being, even though you do have flaws, which is normal, but they're not significant flaws. Once you really get that in your bones, when the critical time happens, you will be able to call upon that wisdom and operate from that, even though, like I said, you don't necessarily feel like it's true. When I'm triggered, I'm like, I'm 100% right, and I'm 100% sure I'm right, and I'm 100% sure I'm never going to think that I'm less than 100% sure I'm right. That's just how we are. But if you have that drilled into your head and it's in your bones, then you have this voice be like, well, remember, and then oh, okay, well, let's just play it safe and let's at the very least say and give my wife some grace that maybe I am completely overreacting right now, and then saying it out loud kind of helps to remind ourselves to differentiate and just have some question marks around it. Anyway, so this is great that Ray's bringing it up. Let's see how Lexi responds.
And not like making me feel like I'm wrong or like dumb.
I think sometimes I can't get out of my own head when we're in it. One-upping one another and making you question something. I don't want that.
Okay, they edited that, but that was good. So Lexi is being soft, and there was a possibility that Lexi would get hurt, that Ray is criticizing. You know, we could say it's criticizing, we say it's feedback, we could say it's trying to work on your relationship, but it's really normal when your partner is saying you get upset and you're rigid. That's essentially what you're overreactive. You know, it's critical. Ray isn't going, you're a jerk face, but we have to be able to tolerate that kind of feedback, that kind of criticism, that threat, that knowledge that our loved one, who we do not want to lose, has a bone to pick with us and has a reason to leave us. It's very threatening. If we have a lot of traumas around that, then we get really triggered. So there's a lot of work there. But what Lexi did there was really good. She's saying, I get into my own head. And, yeah, that's a pretty good description, and taking responsibility. And yeah, that's one way of putting it, right? It's like I get sort of fixated on my own perspective instead of slowing down and trying to have empathy and understand what you're going through.
I was in mock trial. I picked a lane and I argued for it and in favor of it, and consistently, nonstop. So
Sounds about right. This is something I like about you when it's not geared.
And good on Ray for when Lexi is saying things that pleases Ray, that's functional, Ray rewards it by saying, well, and actually there are some times when I actually like this about you, and a little bit of humor, a little bit of bonding. We found in the laboratory, researchers, that when you were having these kinds of discussions and we can have a little levity, not always, of course, not throughout the entire conversation, because sometimes you have to be real, but a little levity goes a long way. Similar to how I talk about physical contact. If you can hold hands or cuddle for 5 minutes and then get back to the discussion at hand, it's really regulating. I really want to emphasize that distress and trauma triggering and anxiety and cortisol and heart rate, it operates outside of our awareness a lot. Even for people who have a lot of emotional awareness, like therapists who do this sort of thing, like myself, it's really hard, particularly in the midst of a difficult conversation, to notice, or even if you take a second to go, okay, how distressed am I? It's hard to know. When we're in fight or flight, when we're in danger, when we're in threat, unless it's really noticeable, like your heart is really pounding. I think our bodies evolved to take care of the danger and not necessarily notice the self. Things are happening outside of our awareness, physically and emotionally, but it's hard to see what's happening. It's sometimes a lot easier to see afterwards. Be like, oh, I must have been a 7, but at the time I felt like I was a 1. Why is that? So it's really important that you assume when you're having a conversation like this that you're going up farther and faster than you think you are, and to have measures in place to mitigate that and to do that as a couple. Because I would venture to say 99%, if not 100%, of all the tragedies that occur within a romantic relationship, or any relationship for that matter, is because one or both individuals were highly distressed physiologically, which shuts down brain functioning. It does, right? When we're in fight or flight, we don't need our higher brain functions. We need to survive. We need to fight, flight, freeze, appease, faint, and we don't have time to think abstractly and with complexity regarding emotion and mentalization. Okay, what are they thinking? What am I thinking? What's the history here? What do I know about myself? What is emotion? And we just literally are incompetent in that state. And so whether it's laughter or positivity or smiling or eye contact or holding hands or cuddling or taking a break or deep breathing or mindfulness or something, whatever it is, if you're not doing that in your conversations with your partner, you're either the Buddha already and you don't have reactivity, which I don't even think the Buddha would claim, or you are in denial of what did I say? If you believe that you have no distress in those situations, you're either some sort of a freak of nature, and God bless you for achieving that level of Zen, or you're in denial of it, or you don't know it, or something. It's universal. So it's this is great what they're doing. This is encouraging. Okay, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching, and everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.